Thank you everybody for tuning in to my first attempt at a debunk video, so we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to start out by prefacing it. This guy, I guess I should call him that guy because that's the name he goes by on YouTube, doesn't really quite understand magnetism. Hopefully we can educate him and get him to stop making dumb videos about how magnets don't work on an actual globe Earth, but they do work on the flat Earth. So take it away, that guy.
What's up, everybody? That guy again. I guess I have to pick it up. But I'm just comparing the two options we have here. We both can't be right, right?
Right, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're wrong just for the sheer fact that I know you're already a flat earther.
It's either one or the other, isn't it? There is a South Pole, there isn't. Because in my model, there isn't one. There can't be. And in your model, there has to be. So one of us is wrong. Let's compare the two theories to reality, shall we?
Yours is a theory in the colloquial sense. The globe has been proven time and time again.
Top of your ball. Looking down at the North Pole. This is a sphere, so it's... Picture this three-dimensionally.
Really? I should picture a sphere as a three-dimensional object, as opposed to a two-dimensional sphere? Or as I like to call it, a circle.
Looking down at your North Pole. The compass is pointing to the north. You can rotate, show south every direction. No problem. However, in the south, this is looking down on the South Pole. Sorry, that's my dog. The South Pole. And show north every direction away. Now, I have to say this. One spot is not the same thing as every direction. It's the antithesis of one spot. A ring is the opposite of one spot.
No, a ring is not the opposite of one spot. The opposite of one spot would either be no spots or every conceivable spot.
So when you show south as a ring, it really is every direction away from north, just as it seems. I know that's sounds like an alien idea. It's crazy that what you're seeing on the compass is actually what's happening.
Actually, no, that's not that crazy of an idea. We would expect that if you went to the North Pole, any step you take would technically be in a southern direction. Granted, that's magnetic pole and not geographic pole.
Down here, this doesn't happen.
But why not? How come it can work for the north but not the south?
This doesn't happen. Okay? You're still pointing here in the southern hemisphere. Let's look at this. Everybody's telling me the magnetic lines. I don't understand magnetic lines. And how many times do I have to hear this comment? It's, he doesn't understand the magnetic lines. Those magnetic lines that I just described in like 3 videos that don't work for a sphere, those magnetic lines I don't understand.
Yes, those magnetic, quote, lines, end quote, as you call them. Those that you don't understand because nobody calls them magnetic lines. It's a magnetic field. What you drew on your chalkboard there looks like lines of longitude. I see that and think globe, not magnet. The Earth is one big magnet, and that's why compasses point north and south. It's not just one direction they point. They point in both directions. That's why there's 2 arrows on them.
If you're just going to go to Wikipedia and say whatever it says, you might want to keep explaining. Because all you're telling me is I don't understand these lines. The ones that I've been describing the whole time.
I haven't actually heard you talk about magnetism, except for maybe in the comments. I found you through Ragical. I'm going to go with Ragical, the Unhallowed Knight. He was actually the one describing how magnets work in your previous video when he responded to it. And by the way, you guys should check him out. Ragical, the Unhallowed Knight. Awesome dude. Hilarious.
These that require a North Pole and a South Pole.
Newsflash! All magnets require a north and south pole. There are some hypothetical particles that don't. Those are monopolar particles, but that's quantum physics, and I honestly don't think you can wrap your head around it.
Because if you're under here on a sphere, your needle is showing north every direction. Now you're pivoting around this point. That doesn't happen.
Prove it. Prove that it doesn't happen. Go to the South Pole with a compass and show me when it does not point north. And again, I'm talking South Magnetic Pole, not South Geographical. Either way, you cannot make unsubstantiated claims like this. You need to prove it.
Look at my other video where I'm holding the soccer ball and you will understand. 1 point, you can circle it. We're all good here. This is reality. This is what the compass shows, right? We're all good. Until you get to your southern hemisphere, then it's a shit show.
In your other video, you used a stick to try and represent a compass needle, and it was not to scale on a soccer ball. What you should have used was maybe a piece of string that curved, because it doesn't just shoot off into space. That's not how magnets work.
Flat Earth here. North, northern hemisphere, equator, southern hemisphere. Just because they named it north-south doesn't mean top-bottom. It's just a name. Don't let terminology get you here.
Ironic when he's using the words hemisphere.
North doesn't mean top. South does not mean bottom. You're fine, Gracie. So let's compare the two to reality. This one, the globe, is three-dimensional, has air and water stuck to it, wrapped around it, unprotected.
Yeah, look out, we gotta protect our air from all those space balls trying to steal it. And if you get that reference, we can be friends.
Flying through infinite vacuum of space, completely unprotected, with air and water stuck to it. It's three-dimensional. Gracie, chill out. Has two poles that you would necessarily have to pivot around, this one and this one. You can't pivot around two poles. That's impossible.
You just triggered a whole bunch of strippers. I've seen some of the girls that can pivot around two poles. They're amazing. And the guys are pretty impressive too.
Impossible. Unless you're going to say two poles are in the exact same spot, then all you do is flatten your ball. Problem solved. Anyways, this has two poles, three-dimensional, has water and air stuck to it, flying through an infinite vacuum, unprotected, has two pivot points.
I want to create a new fallacy for flat earthers called repetitive incredulity, because that's what this is. He just keeps repeating the same talking points, which he knows nothing about. And by pivot points, he clearly means magnetic poles. He tries to use those interchangeably. I don't quite understand why, but they're not the same thing.
And these magnetic lines. Gracie, chill out. You're fine. She's wanting her food, but she's got food. She's fine. So, flat Earth. All the water is flat. All the water is contained by the shoreline.
By shoreline, do you mean ice wall? That's what I hear every other flat earther call it. And one thing I haven't quite figured out yet is ice floats. So how does it hold in water?
Just because the map stops doesn't mean the Earth stops. That's another globetard assumption. A map is just where men have gone and charted onto a piece of paper. Just because they only drew so far on paper doesn't mean Earth suddenly stops and there must be an edge. You're still in the space mode. We're not talking about anything floating in space, remember? Erase space. You'll never get it if you think space is real.
I can understand the flat earth and still believe space is real. Your concepts aren't that difficult.
So, this Earth, this is Antarctica, the outside. It keeps going. Southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere, equator. The compass, okay, so all the water's flat and contained by a shoreline, just as they need to be. It's all flat. It's two-dimensional. The compass is always laying flat?
Repetitive incredulity alert. Woo! That's number 2 in this video alone. Also, the compass doesn't always lay flat. Radical actually did a video on it where he showed that compasses, depending on which hemisphere they're manufactured in, will actually incorporate weights into the function if they're crossing over the equator into the other hemisphere. So they do work in a 3-dimensional space, not a 2-dimensional space. Also, who else is hearing his dog grumble whenever he says something dumb? Like it's trying to correct him, but it can't because it doesn't speak English.
The air is contained because it's pressurized, and physics says if you have pressure, you need a container. Real physics. Not math on a chalkboard, but something that can be produced. Applied physics.
I don't think that's what physics says, but it does say that if you have an enclosed, pressurized system, that it will find a place of equilibrium where the pressure is pushing out on every edge at the same psi. So, how do you have pressure differentials in altitude in an enclosed system?
Pressure is a force exerted on a container wall. Gracie, air pressure is anyways. You're fine, dude. Hold on. Just got back from the beach and she's all pumped. Look at that face. What a baby. Anyways, so water's flat, air's contained, compass is always laying flat, it's 2-dimensional, has one single attractive point.
Attractive how? Attractive magnetically or attractive physically? Because I know I could get down on some pole when I really need to.
This would be the opposite of this in polarity. Ring magnets exist. Not every magnet is like the one on your fridge behind me. There are ring magnets, so please stop with the monopoled magnet. No one's talking about a monopoled magnet. I'm not suggesting that the compass doesn't work. I'm not suggesting the compass doesn't work in the southern hemisphere. I'm suggesting the compass works perfectly because this is reality.
Okay, so you mentioned ring magnets, but again, Radical already covered this. Ring magnets don't function the way you think because they still have 2 poles in the ring. So you would need a north and south pole surrounding your flat Earth. And then what attracts the compass needle to the middle?
So, one has 2 poles, 3-dimensional, water and air stuck to it, flying through space, defies everything we know of applied physics.
I don't believe you understand any physics whatsoever. I mean, you've already demonstrated in this video that you don't understand magnetism. And secondly, stop licking your lips, man. They're just going to get more chapped. Go get some lip balm and take care of that shit.
Requires theory, requires magic, and just makes absolutely no sense scientifically or logically. And the other is the flat Earth.
Did you hear that inflection in his voice when he said flat Earth? Like, ah, I'm at peace. But you're wrong.
Water's contained, air's contained, 2-dimensional, and one single attractive center.
What causes the center point to be attractive? By your proposal, there is a southern ring magnet around the outside and a northern point magnet in the middle. The problem is, that wouldn't work across the span of thousands of miles. The north magnet would have to be a north and southern point magnet, whereas the southern ring magnet would also have to have a northern polarity on the opposite side.
Let's compare that to reality. Air needs to be contained.
It is, by gravity.
Water cannot form to a spinning ball.
Oh, sweet. A chance to try out my Donald Trump impression. Wrong. Nailed it.
The compass only uses 2-dimensional mechanics. It only uses the horizontal plane.
Still wrong.
Must be laying flat. Water must be laying flat and contained. I think I think we figured it out, folks. Both of us can't be right. One of us is wrong.
And it's you.
One follows science and physics. The other is science fiction, requires theory, can never be proven by the scientific method no matter how long you try or how much math you put on a chalkboard. Math means jack squat until you can produce it in reality.
So just big F you to math, huh? If that's how you feel, maybe you should give up everything in your life that utilized math, like your electronics or your house, any air travel, obviously.
Fantasy, 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 reality. Stop saying flat earthers don't know science, we don't know physics, we don't know magnetic lines. I know the magnetic lines. I've explained them 100 times. They don't work. I hope that clarified. Anyways, been fun. Till next time. Sorry about my dog. She's a little fired up. Keep it real. Till next time. Later.
So there we have it. He still doesn't really understand magnetism, even though he claims to be an expert on it, because he knows the magnetic lines, guys. Don't bring it up, because he knows them. Thanks for sticking around past the end, guys. I do appreciate it. You know the drill with YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, or don't. I'm not a cop. I don't police the internet. What I will say is I do apologize for no like intro music or avatar or anything. Like I said, this is my first debunk video, so hopefully that stuff will come in time if you guys like my work. And I will see you in the next one.